If there was one place that you could rely on to deliver on a story within the zombie genre, it would undoubtedly come from Korea. All of Us Are Dead centers on a group of high school students fighting for their lives to survive when a zombie outbreak takes over their school. The series, which is based on a webtoon of the same name, carefully crafts a story that leaves you on the edge of your seat. It's a story that is both bleak and profound in its portrayal and depiction of human nature. When death and chaos surrounds us, we are our worst and best versions of ourselves.
This is yet another K-drama keeping up the momentum generated from Squid Game and Hellbound, making it in the top 10 list for most watched content on Netflix. But what makes this drama unique and stand out over other dramas and movies such as #Alive, Kingdom, or Train to Busan? It beautifully captures the stark reality of dealing with adolescence in the midst of a horrifying outbreak.
Yet under all the bleakness and hopelessness, All of Us Are Dead manages to insert some light-hearted moments just to give us as an audience a small break. K-dramas are just so good at reminding us about our very own mortality. It's a formula that makes K-dramas so relatable. After watching all 12 episodes of the drama, we want to dive deeper into some of the key highlights of the story and what happened at the end.
What's up, Sunday fams? Welcome back to another video. My name is Flip.
I'm Element.
And we get together each and every week to catch up to some of our favorite Asian dramas and K-pop related content. This time around, it is All of Us Are Dead. But before we get to everything, I want to have a special shout out to our friend over at No Sleep for Dramas. Her blog is always up to date, and if you're ever wondering about what to watch next, her watch list is never empty. So go check it out. The link will be in the description below. So there's a few standouts and highlights that we need to get through because this drama has just been so spectacular. But wait till the end because we do have one complaint. But before we get to that, let's talk about the standouts and the highlights.
Lee Yu-mi.
Woo!
Now, when I first started watching this, I didn't recognize who she was, and then Flip messaged me and I was like, she does look very familiar. And of course, coming off of the success of Squid Game, Lee Yu-mi, who plays Ji-young in Squid Game, also plays Na-yeon.
Oh, and it's amazing because two very different characters.
Yeah.
We loved her in Squid Game, and you kind of hate her here in All of Us Are Dead. Now, of course, in this one, she kind of plays a character that's a little bit nonchalant and kind of has this kind of above everyone else attitude, which kind of makes you want to hate her. But what really puts a spotlight on her was her acting ability and the way she performed the character. She enabled us to like really grow those emotions of like, who is this person? This person needs to die. Like, no pun intended.
Yes.
But her ability to act and ability to cry, which is reminiscent of her performance in Squid Game, is really what put the spotlight on her in probably the first 3 or 4 episodes of this series.
저는 기댈 데가 없네. 다 필요 없어.
Now, if we're talking about her acting ability to make us hate her, of course, Na-yeon, the character, does some incredibly dark things, including the least of which is to, betray the survival group itself. When you're in a group, in a survival situation, you have to do everything you can to keep the group safe. And the first thing she does is just to prove that she's correct is to purposefully infect someone in the group. And that was dumb, conceited, selfish. I mean, just because she wanted to be correct, but also it endangered the whole group.
Absolutely. Like, that was the moment where it was just like, what?
Yes.
Like, when you were watching this and you were just like, wow, can a human being really stoop that low or get that terrible at just being a human being? Get there.
Now, of course, Yumi plays a character that we thought was going to make it a lot further into the story. You know, we thought that she was going to have a redemption story where she was going to come back and kind of rejoin the group with a different perspective on life, a new lease on life. But she didn't. She got eaten by Guinam and turned into a zombie herself. And it's kind of just, well, that's karma. And that leads us into our next standout of this series, which is the social themes.
It was quite disturbing to see the story introduce you to the worst human beings on Earth. Bullying is such a major theme in society and an important social issue that must be met with absolute seriousness. Although disturbing, the story reflects on the worst side of human nature. In the case of Yoonji, The system and its institutions fail to support her. It's only natural for us to even root for her after she becomes a Hambi.
And then there's Ginam. Seriously, how many times does this guy have to fall to his death? Because the one thing that happens most in this series is Ginam chasing Chongsun and then subsequently being thrown off of a roof in some way, shape, or form.
He was definitely one of those villains that helped raise your blood to a boiling point. If there was anything more dangerous than a flesh-eating zombie, it was definitely him. It is his presence that creates an even more dynamic story, as he served as a constant threat to our group's survival. Now I think this is probably the biggest standout for me in the drama. It's gonna be Choi Nam-ra.
Yes. Speaking of people who are a constant threat, is Namra, who is also the same, a Hambi, like Ginam, but is not as sadistic as Ginam, but still poses that internal threat. That lingering question is that when is she going to turn?
Absolutely.
When is she going to eat us? And can we really trust her? And when we're watching the show and we're watching all of these events unfold, when she finally gains the trust of the survivors, suddenly they're like on the precipice of escape, the precipice of survival. She starts having the cravings and can't handle it anymore.
Symbolically, she represents everything about this drama and this story. She symbolized prejudice, discrimination, all the societal themes that we touched on earlier. And she also had this inner conflict of moral choices. Everyone has a choice. Even though the monster within her is trying to take over, she decides to take the right choice, or she decides to make the right choice. And what I love about her is that she ends up being the type of superhuman that the scientist in the beginning, the science teacher in the beginning, was trying to make out of his son, because the bullying factor wanted to make him stronger. It didn't work out, but she is the ultimate result of that experiment. Another thing that stood out to us was the practical use of surroundings and tools. It was a joy to see the group use anything and everything around them to fight off the zombies and to protect themselves.
Special shout out to my favorite character and my favorite standout of the series, Hari, who was on the archery team, who was trying to make the national team but got eliminated, and that's why she found herself back at school looking for her brother. And it was, I mean, I gravitate a lot towards archers in zombie apocalypses. It's like the perfect weapon. It's the perfect weapon. It's silent, deadly, and even with these practice tips, you can still pierce a zombie's head.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen you shoot those on the targets. And yeah, I wouldn't want to step in front of those things. You know, Hari really provided that hope for me. Like, she was like the Daryl of The Walking Dead. Like, oh, she's going to come in there and just kind of shoot those arrows and those zombies dead.
And she did.
And she did. But like, you know, it wasn't like a superhero.
Can you give me time? I'm sorry.
Also, the production value and action. Almost every aspect of the production value gets top grades. The use of special effects was smart, only used sparingly, while most of the action sequences were done practically. The integration of parkour definitely makes you want to start training in the case a zombie apocalypse happens.
But if there's one complaint we have, it's the trolley problem and sacrifice. One thing that apocalyptic movies or dystopias deal with a lot is the trolley problem. The choice of saving the one over the many, and the typical solution to that philosophical question always brings us to sacrifice yourself to save them both. Onjo's father is a great example of this. The guy clearly had more than 20 seconds to escape with the rest of them, but he chose to stay behind and get eaten alive in front of his daughter for another 20 seconds, only for him to be turned. And the issue here is that he had a chance to escape. There was no reason for him to sacrifice himself. And in sacrificing yourself, you have now added yourself as one more enemy for your friends to run away from, and the difficulty of eliminating you much more worse for the people that care about you.
You know, we talk about these spotlights, but ultimately the whole group, the surviving group, or like the surviving group that got picked off one by one towards the end.
The people that remain.
They were all very good in this drama, and they brought out a lot of emotions, especially from the purview or from the perspective of teenagers. You know, there's aspects of their emotions and discovering it for the first time, but then they also have to deal with a bunch of zombies.
Yeah, you're trying to survive, you're trying not to die, but you know, I'm gonna confess right now. And that's like the best time for that thing, you know?
Ooh, yeah, special shout out to Chong-san. Now let's talk about it for a minute because there's a lot of discussions about Chong-san maybe potentially still being alive. I actually don't think he's alive because one, it would ruin the entire story. It would provide him the plot armor that did not exist at all in this drama.
And I think this is the one thing that I'm going to talk about now about the ending that kind of solidifies everything for me. The show is called All of Us Are Dead. And at the very end with Namra, she is all healed up and she's doing great. She's no longer having these cravings. She's been out there on her own, surviving. How, we don't know. But the surviving group, after a couple of months being in quarantine, meet her and reunite and find out that she's actually kind of like cultivating her own group of Hambies that are just like her. And then she jumps off the roof and she's just like, time to go lead my army. And I think if there is going to be a season 2, it involves the rise of Namra. Now, I know that sounds like a sequel to Thundercats, but it's like, I really think that's the next logical step for this story narratively, because all of us are dead, and as morbid as it is to say, I think their destiny, all of them, is to die. And so I think the question remains, or the question becomes philosophically, you know, can we coexist with these new types of mutants, I'm gonna say, with these Hambies?
Well,
and if we can't, then all of us are dead.
All of us are dead. All of us are dead emotionally, especially from the perspective of the teenagers being abandoned by the adults. All of us are dead by the moral choices that you have to make, sacrificing an entire city and its population for the better good of the entire country. The commander, takes himself out because he couldn't handle the emotions or the burden of the choices that he made. Now, going back to Namra, I'm dying to know how she healed herself. I'm dying to know how she's looking fresh, and even though she's dead, fresh and alive, right? Like, has she been feeding on humans, or has she been feeding on, what has she been doing? So that's a speculation, and also kind of leads us to some theories that we might have for season 2. Like, it's definitely going to have to deal with the situation of who are these Hambies, and can we ultimately trust them? Can we live with them?
Only the commander and only the blockade troops and the martial law people know that there is like half infected people, asymptomatic, and their stance is to abandon them and to bomb the entire Hyosan city. And so when there is a whole civilization, I'm imagining by the next season, if Namra is the leader, if there's a whole civilization, that question is just going to be catapulted to the top of everyone's priority list to answer.
It's going to be an amazing dynamic to find out. Season 2 has to happen. It hasn't been confirmed yet, so we'll keep you updated. And when we find out when season 2 comes out, that's going to be an amazing treat for us. But I think in season 2, it's definitely going to come down with the morality and the choices of people as human beings. The Hambies, something's going to happen with the Hambies where they infect other people, and then other people, the zombies outbreaks start to spread again. And so there's the Hambies, there's the zombies, and then there's the humans. That triangle is going to be in perfect, constant...
Or the Hambies, or people like Namra, because she's all healed and she's got her stuff figured out. They sire or infect new Hambies. They don't make like the dumb like Lanker zombies.
Because the virus evolves.
Yes, it's a mutation within Namra, and then anybody who reaches her level of mutation or evolution creates new Hambies. And so the virus will continue to proliferate, but it will proliferate into intelligent, speaking, asymptomatic people. And so the containment measures need to be updated. And of course,
sure. Now that kind of brings me to another theory where yes, Namra is a very good Hambi, like a very good Hambi. She's on the good side, but there are also others that could be a Hambi, like a superhuman Hambi. We keep saying Hambi. It's a very clever term for a half zombie, but there could be another Hambi like Ginam, who is really evil and just has different thoughts and different ways. I don't know. I don't think he survived either. I don't think he did. But like what I'm saying is that there could be like an evil faction of Hambies that just throws a wrench in everything. Whew, well, All of Us Are Dead was definitely amazing. We're definitely gonna grade this an A+. That is it for us, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. Leave us a comment in the section below, a like, subscribe if you haven't already, tap that bell so you know when we post new videos. And once again, this is what we're watching this Sunday. We'll see you next time.
Hey stop 참 무책임해 왜 자꾸 들었다 놨다 해 헷갈리게 친절은 사양할게 오해하게 하지 말아요 날 yeah 들어봐 가뭄 같은 마음엔 뭐라도 단비가 돼요